why am I responsible for your professional capabilities? Fuck you. Seriously, there will be no demand for lazy people that think that the world owes them anything. We actually unintentionally created the first version of OnlyFans, okay? The first 20 or 30 people I told about the idea of Fiverr said I'm either stupid or just crazy. It's never gonna work. Finding and engaging with freelancers was terrible. It was worse than dating.
It's no secret that I'm a big fan of going public. You did that. You happy with the decision, unhappy with the decision, key lessons?
Don't. I'm kidding.
You're killing me, Micha. I'm super excited to be your day back on Invested with Micha Kaufman, founder and CEO of Fiverr, a public company, which you should all check out. I'm also here to tell you that I was stupid enough not to invest in Fiverr because I thought the name Fiverr with 2 R's at the end was not going to be a scalable business past $5. You remember that, Micha?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The entrepreneurs never forget who passed on their business. Micha, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You want to just give everyone a 2-minute background on who Micha Kaufman is, because what I really want to spend the bulk of the hour talking about is how you are the past era of work and the future era of work and why this matters in the era of AI.
So I've been building companies for the past, 25 years. Fiverr is my 4th company. I actually started my career as a lawyer. Practiced all in the field of IP. So did a lot of patent work. Was involved in helping to draft the first patent for Google in Israel. And that's kind of
you miss
who
being a
I
lawyer?
am. Oh, I hated every moment of it. So I don't know. I'm clean for 25 years. This is how I usually speak about that period.
It's funny now that I think about it. You were an hourly, you charged by the hour being a lawyer, and then you created something that charged by the task.
Correct.
$5. Tell everybody for a second. So I started by saying, the gig economy was the whole rage for the last decade. And I think Fiverr is the poster child of the gig economy on some level, even more than Uber. Uber was talked about a lot, but it was one kind of gig, which is driving. But Fiverr did 10,000 kinds of gigs. Why don't you tell everyone about Fiverr for a second and what you innovated and built?
So Fiverr started as an idea in 2009, and this was really an interesting period of in history, or the history of labor, because it coincided with the fact that in 2010 millennials actually went into the workforce, and this was a new generation that was born into a connected world. They had many more opportunities than their parents. They saw, it was the wake of the recession of 2008. So they saw their parents, who always preached for steady work, losing their jobs in 2008. So that was the burst of the bubble of the safe jobs. So for them, thinking about going solo was pretty obvious. And this was a tectonic change, because it changed freelancing from something that was before 2010, a thing that people did mostly in between jobs, into a legit career and a lifestyle. So this was kind of the scene in which Fiverr went into, and building a couple of companies. I use freelancers pretty extensively. But finding and engaging with freelancers was terrible. It was worse than dating. It was really, really hard to find the right person. Usually you take them to a coffee shop, you look into each other's eyes, you need to figure out if you want to, and just, it's a process that, by the way, on average takes about 30 days, if you're pretty efficient. And I was asking myself if there's a better way of actually doing this. And, there was this framework that I've used to think about the next big idea. You invested in the company before Fiverr, and I was thinking after we wind down that company on how to create a framework to think about what could be an exciting idea, and I came up with something super simple, which by the way describes Uber and Airbnb and probably even companies like Amazon, and that was find an existing market that is very sizable, which means that you don't need to educate to create a market. It already exists. That has a lot of intrinsic inefficiencies and friction that you can potentially cure with software. It is super simple if you think about it, but it described Fiverr. It probably describes Lemonade. It describes, banking solutions, online banking. It describes Airbnb. It definitely describes, companies like Uber. And the principle that I've applied in Fiverr is really taking this idea of e-commerce, where you have SKU system. You can browse or search for anything you need, and you can click order to buy. It sounds simple, but packaging or creating a SKU system for services was extremely complex because unlike retail, where a product is a product and it doesn't matter who sells it, here, I mean, the supplier of a service is one of a kind. The perception of a service is very nuanced and subjective. So creating that system was an unheard of idea. And actually the first 20 or 30 people I told about the idea of Fiverr said I'm either stupid or just crazy. It's never going to work. And this was the task that we went with. And it started as it was a bootstrap business. We didn't raise money. So it had to have a business model from day one. And it had to have stickiness and virality baked into it because it needed to be grassroots growth. And the gimmick that we came up with was this idea where there's a single price, it's $5. And the tagline that we came up with at the end, after going through maybe 400 different iterations, was the things people do for $5, which was, this was one of the reasons why it went on fire. So this was one component. And the other component is how we set it up. It was, I don't know if people remember sites like Fuck My Life. So Fuck My Life, or FML, was this site where there was a syntax that started with today, comma, blank, fuck my life. And so essentially people came in and they just put something, today, this and that happened, fuck my life. And this went completely bizarre. But this inspired me to actually create this syntax for Fiverr and do something which was pretty similar, which is I will blank for $5. And the way it was set up was that when you reached the homepage, you saw this listing that had the same syntax. And you just had to type something in the box and click submit. It seemed too easy. So most people tried it. Then it took you to another form, use that information, and then you had to spend 2 more minutes to just offer something. So it was irresistible. People had to engage with it. So this was the beginning. This is how it was set up to start going viral and be super sticky because it was the quirkiest stuff.
All right, what's the quirkiest or strangest?
Oh man, there's
That's safe for the air, okay?
well, yeah. I actually
Okay, not safe.
recently I actually said for the first time after 15 years that we actually unintentionally created the first version of OnlyFans. Okay. And once we realized that we actually cleaned that up, which was, history will judge if this was a mistake or or the right thing to do. But there were stuff which were very similar to what we know now from OnlyFans. But there were like, I don't know, people that would record happy birthday videos for your loved ones. And there was this professional juggler that was juggling working chainsaws. This was like, I mean, there were some scary shit there. But it went really quick. And actually, I think that your concern about moving away from the $5 and extending it was dead on. It was probably the biggest issue or the biggest challenge that we need to go through. We had to go through. And I think that this was, in hindsight, obviously, was one of the smartest things. The way we've done it was one of the smartest things we've ever done in this company.
How'd you do it?
So here's the beauty about $5. It was a bootstrap business. We didn't have a team. So essentially, we didn't have the capacity to do marketplace integrity, right? Because you'd be like, and we didn't have the tech. This was 15 years ago. Today it's really easy. You use AI, whatever. It's relatively easy. Back then we didn't have to. But the thing about $5 is, what's the worst that can happen, right? Meaning it's self-governed in a way, because we build a very strong reputation system baked into the product itself. And we actually outsource the work of marketplace integrity to our customers. So essentially, if they hated something, then, they rated it low. But again, the risk was very low because it was $5. If you lose it, you lose it. It's not devastating. And so the way we went out of $5 without having a marketplace integrity team was we started working on increments of $5, and we used your entry performance, meaning you offer something for $5, you can't offer anything for higher price than that. And if your customers are happy with you, then we start allowing you to offer multiples of Fiverr. So essentially, you can then upgrade to being able to offer $10 and maybe $20. And depending on how you continue going up the scale, then you can extend your offering. This was the breakthrough on how we went out of the $5. And then as we started getting a lot of traction for that as well, then it was much easier. We were already funded to put the marketplace integrity and get the talent in that can offer any service, any price. So we can screen that in advance and create the tech to do it, and scale up. And today we started with like these general, maybe 5 or 6 categories that became large verticals. And we now have about 800 different categories of services, and I don't know how many millions and millions of services. I mean, we've done.
How many individual freelancers do you think are there?
I don't think we've published this, and again, I'm keeping myself because we're a public company. But generally speaking, millions, active, hundreds of thousands.
And how many of them do you assume this is their primary source of income?
Well, I think the 2080 rule, maybe 90-10 rule. Everybody talks about the 2080. It's far from being. I mean, even on Amazon, it's not 80-20. It's more of like 90-10. So this is, I think, a fair number.
I want to go back to what I think was a very profound comment you made a few minutes ago when you said coming out of 2008, the next generation, the millennials, figured out that their parents' safe jobs at Citibank weren't safe jobs anymore. By the way, when I was invested in WeWork, we saw the same thing. A bunch of people who were laid off from Citibank, it actually case started companies inside of WeWork. And so you caught this wave of people saying, oh, I don't want a safe job. Actually, there is no such thing as a safe job. And so I'm going to build a career, or at least a secondary income, out of a freelance or multiple freelance gigs. How did that express itself? Or do you have data to show that expressed itself in what became like a movement, of labor? You now say there are millions of people and hundreds of thousands of active and probably tens of thousands. So this is their primary income. Um, Share some data or how that expresses itself in numbers.
So first of all, I mean, the data point that I think is really interesting is if you look at official um, Census Bureau in the U.S. data. When we started Fiverr 2010, the official number was about 20% of the active workforce are engaging in freelancing in some capacity. This number today, very close to 50.
2.5 times.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, you don't need more than that. And then you have these, in the past few years, these new concepts of like these digital nomads, these flexible agencies, these on-the-fly agencies. Um, there's there, there's an interesting story, um, which I think is fun to share. We did the Super Bowl in 2020.
Super Bowl ad.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Which is kind of, it's a thing, right? Um, it's a branding event. It's really interesting. I mean, the first branding event is the IPO itself, which is like we have arrived moment, right? This was 2019, 2020. We've done the Super Bowl. And Super Bowl is pretty expensive, and we've done it pretty creatively. Meaning we didn't go with celebrities, and instead of that, we piggybacked on this cultural moment in the U.S. with the Four Season debacle. You remember this?
I remember
Right?
it.
Okay, so
You want to
essentially,
just tell everybody about the Four Seasons debacle?
yeah, sure. So Trump wanted to make an appearance and a press conference in the Four Seasons hotel. And I think it was Giuliani that was in charge of picking the place. And by mistake, and nobody realized this, he ended up in the Four Season landscaping place, which is like, it's a gardening service essentially. Which and this was, they realized this in the morning of the press conference. It was impossible to cancel, and it was pretty embarrassing. It became this meme and a joke. So what we decided was to work with the owner of the Four Season Landscaping and make her the hero of the Super Bowl ad. So this was kind of the idea. It was COVID. It was super complex. We had to completely rebuild her business in Mexico because of COVID restrictions, and film the entire thing there. It was crazy. We actually put her and her family in the Four Season in Mexico to stay, and so this was a good story. Anyway, you like this. I think that this was publicly mentioned. I think we spent about $8 million in doing this, the entire campaign. And you know how campaigns are. It's like you do a build up for a week or two. And then there's the night of or the day of, and there's like this crazy spike, and it lasts for 12 seconds and whatever. And then there's like another halo effect that lasts 2 weeks. So this was it. And I mean, we loved it, and we loved Marie, the owner, and it was like we became friends. She's still texting me every time we have a war to ask how we're doing. And anyway, so the reason I'm telling this story is that maybe 6 months after that, there was a story that we weren't involved in. I think it was MSNBC, and this was a story about this very young girl who made a fortune on Fiverr, and she's very good looking. She stands with her shiny new Jeep, and she's telling the story about how she actually bought her mom a house and how she's like building this massive business, and she's doing all of it on Fiverr. That story brought more traffic to Fiverr than the Super Bowl. But this is a generation. The fact that it inspires so many people, the fact that it gets the attention of an entire generation, is the story of what we're witnessing in the past, decade and a half. And data proves it. We're seeing how this is shaping up to be. COVID made the case for remote work. So if I'm allowing my team to be remote, maybe I should look into more talent. AI is changing it again.
This notion that a young woman next to a Jeep was more impactful than a Super Bowl commercial is in a nutshell the story of the inversion of business, of media, of everything to become more atomized and more entrepreneurial and more influencer driven, and the power of freelancers to create businesses that may not rival in scope the size of large companies, but from a personal income perspective can rival what I can earn, to pick on them, Citibank. I mean, that's the story.
Precisely.
And what I actually hadn't paid attention to until you mentioned it is you have 2008, in which the kind of career jobs became unstable, 2009, in which it became okay to be a freelancer independent, and then COVID, which opened up a flood of opportunities to do this remote and digital. So you've had like a turbo boost, first an initiation and then a turbo boost in 2020, 2021 that brought all this online. And, you could transact for all sorts of things online all of a sudden that even before you couldn't transact for. And all that kind of turbo boosted Fiverr, who was at the forefront of this revolution. And if early on I ordered some pencil sketches on Fiverr, now you could do full digital media campaigns. You could get people to do things in other parts of the world, physical activities, which got harder to do during COVID. People used Fiverr during COVID to kind of, okay, I can't get there, but you're there.
Yeah.
Let me do that. But what it also did at the same time was it digitized a massive amount of services, information, data, which leads to the current moment we're in now, which is AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's, for argument's sake, say that Fiverr has created many millions of, not W-2s, but they're not even 1099s either. They're like people who can get paid to earn some sort of living through freelance work. And these people, many of them set up their own businesses or part of small businesses who transact via Fiverr. All that stuff exists online, or a lot of it exists online. What percentage of that set of businesses and people do you think is at threat from AI?
I should start by saying the following. We've seen technological transformation before AI. AI is an exceptional transformation, mostly because of its pace, right? It's happening very, very, very fast.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we've seen technological transformations before, and technology displacing some types of tasks is not a new notion. Okay, should say that. And actually, if you think about it from a bird's view, there was this interesting story in The Economist where they've done this research in, I think it was 2018, that showed that 60% of the jobs that existed on 2018 didn't exist 50 years before, which means that jobs do not most of them do not pass well between generations. So that's the baseline.
Yeah, I'm in that camp too. There's a lot of these labor doomers. I'm not one of them. I'm with you.
Yeah. So for us, I said that we're now running about 800 different categories, but we've killed hundreds of categories over the years because they became irrelevant, and that's
Give me
fine.
examples.
Well, sometimes there are things that are very temporal. For example, NFT was a thing for a year, and then it wasn't. And by the way, I actually think that NFTs is super interesting. I just think that it didn't find the killer app. And I think I have an idea of what that killer app could be.
I hear another company in the making.
But NFT was a thing. Like, think about think about 10 years ago. If you wanted to remove a background from an image, that required a Photoshop artist. Not a lot of the work was done manually.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need it anymore. But that's fine. I mean, those types of labors are low skill, low income. I mean, the price per unit is not going to be very high. It's $5, $10. You're not going to spend more than that doing. It's repetitive, in some ways robotic, which is why robots can actually replace it. What is the percentage? I don't know exactly, but these are things that would go away anyway. They're just going away faster.
Yeah, I want to point out the irony.
At the same time, there's tens and hundreds of new professions that are being created as a result of this that are, at least at the beginning, more skilled. And over time, they're going to be also moving. I sent a memo to my team, and I was talking about this.
We're going to read that memo soon.
No, that's fine. But there was a point there, which I made a point about saying the very simplistic tasks are going away. What was considered to be hard is going to be the new simple. And what was considered to be almost impossible is going to be the new hard. So essentially, we're just moving an odd chop, okay? And we'll talk about if this is really up or not.
Right. I think, by the way, that's an incredible framework, right? Which is, given the empowering tools, automation hit the simple tasks. What were medium tasks are now simple tasks, and therefore lower cost because they've been semi-automated away by, call it AI or
but it's
LLMs.
Also lower effort. It's not
also,
just
right.
lower cost, it's lower effort.
Right.
It's fine to be lower cost because you put less effort in.
And you just pay for some of it in tokens. And then things that we thought a person on Fiverr couldn't do before, they can now do because they've got these superpowers called AI. I want to just take 1 second and point out what I think is an incredible irony, which is Fiverr, which started with $5 and a lot of simple rudimentary tasks that anyone can do anywhere in the world, those tasks are now worth $0, and other tasks have kind of moved down. And it's actually the AI that disrupts from the bottom up on some level. The easier tasks get automated away, and then I guess other ones come down. So the fact that you moved up market actually has helped.
Absolutely. And by the way, disruptions, in most cases, work from the bottom up,
right,
and not from the top down.
Right. They get the Fivers before they get the tenors.
Right. And also, I mean, you know what? One really interesting, we mentioned Uber. I think that Uber is a interesting showcase for what happens when you start from the top down.
Interesting.
Because they started with black cars.
Right.
And they went all the way down to private cars and taxis. As they've done it, they completely cannibalized the black car business. Meaning that if you go from the top down, this is the risk. The risk is you're going to cannibalize your own premium business instead of actually building into it. And I think that this is maybe a good example for why, in most cases, the disruptions actually work from the bottom up and not the other way around.
I think, by the way, in automotive, for what it's worth, Tesla came from the top down, Uber came from the top down, They're both, I would argue, close to monopoly businesses in those markets, which I think is interesting.
From a car count basis, Tesla is not.
Yeah, but in this kind of electric vehicle segment, they are the
That is
clear
true.
winner.
And by the way, there's many things that are considered things you don't do that you can actually do
Mm-hmm.
if you become a monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
And Uber, again, is a good example for that, because I remember Uber went public a few months after our IPO. And I remember their CEO said the unthinkable thing. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Uber may never be a profitable company." Which is like, what? But in 2019, this was fair game, okay? By the way, it's never fair game, much like there is no negative interest rate. It's like
And they're profitable. No.
right, but not with the same CEO. But the point is, the point I'm making is this. The reason why they thought about this was that the unit economy of Uber was completely broken, okay? Which, when like in general, when you think about acquiring customers, you always look at the incremental cost and contribution of the last customer that you purchase, because they're the most expensive. And at some point, there's a diminishing effect, so you stop doing it. They didn't. And by the way, it was smart for them not to do it. But this is subject to one rule, which is, if this would help you become a de facto monopoly, then it's fair game, because you're going to figure it out. Once you're a monopoly, you can do whatever the hell you want.
And also ZERP and zero interest rate policy, which, made money free.
Right.
Yeah.
But these were aberrations.
Yeah.
Right. But this was interesting. I mean, so if you can become a monopoly, there's a bunch of things that you can allow yourself to do that no other companies can do. But yeah.
So if the previous regime was, let's call it the gig economy, the freelancer work economy, what is this new regime?
I don't know. We actually coined the term gig economy. I don't know. Most people, I don't think, know this. But when we actually launched Fiverr, again, maybe because of my background, I insisted on writing a trademark for the word gig.
Wait, Fiverr owns the trademark for the word gig?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So
talk about a
here you
monopoly.
So, and we own gigeconomy.com and whatever. So essentially we coined it, but the way it was used made us walk away from it, because I think that it had some negative connotations to it, and it was very loosely and very broadly used. But I think that this is all about the talent or skill economy. And here's another interesting analogy when you think about transformational waves. Fiverr in 2010 or 20 in 2009, when we started coding it, was built on the cloud. And this was not obvious. We were one of the first Israeli companies to set up on a public cloud, and what was interesting about the cloud, and what was interesting specifically about AWS, was that, I mean, just for the sake of those who are too young, before the cloud, you had to buy your servers, and so these were physical pizza-like,
Pizza boxes,
and you had to maintain them, upgrade them, ensure their security, do backups, change the hardware to make it faster, blah blah blah. And so if you were a young company, and you were broke, you couldn't afford good equipment, and it became old super fast. what cloud computing did was to democratize computing power and leveling the playing field so that companies like Fiverr, which started Bootstrap, could actually have the same equipment that the largest brands in the world has. And you actually pay as you use. So if you're not successful, you don't pay a lot. And if you do succeed, then there's a payment to it. That makes sense. The reason I'm mentioning this is I've actually realized that in many ways, and I'm not making a comparison between a computer hardware and people, but there's a case where when you think about your full-time employees, they're like buying hardware, which you constantly are responsible for upgrading. And you need to make sure that they're the latest and greatest, right? Which is pretty hard. Or you can get that talent on the cloud. And in that case, you pick the latest and greatest already. And you're not paying the tax of actually educating them and keeping them up to speed. So I think that a lot of companies actually realized that this created these incredible opportunities, and they started making this distinction between what is the necessary core competency of your organic organization versus all the peripheries. Look, if what you're doing as a company is developing these super complex algos, the algo people you should probably hire full time, okay? But the rest, it's not your business. Like, what do you care?
You're on some level making the Henry Ford argument, right? Which is I had an assembly line and I just trained people to be pulled in and out of the assembly line because these people became interchangeable for the job of putting the door on the car on the assembly line. What you, I think, saying is, as the internet and software has gotten better and access to global talent has gotten better, many more parts of a value chain have become interchangeable and you can purchase them on the internet. And so therefore, I can reduce myself as a hiring company down to core, and because I can measure and get reputation on other parts of the stack that I need to fill in, I can just kind of constantly upgrade that or make it interchangeable.
Correct, but the interchangeable part is not the most important thing. The most important thing is getting the best talent that you don't need on a regular basis. You can scale it up or down as you need, which is like servers. Again, I'm not claiming that it's the same thing, but I think it's the same concept of leveling the playing field in the sense that we're democratizing access to talent, which is the basic, fundamental layer of the Maslow pyramid of needs of Fiverr.
I want to read you a post that you wrote on X about why this is the best time to be a human. This is the most extraordinary time in history to be a human. Yes, AI is doing things for us, fixing, accelerating, optimizing, and yes, some people are afraid. They worry we're losing touch with the skills we once relied on. But why is that a bad thing? The way I see it, we've been given an incredible gift, the chance to let go of everything humans shouldn't be doing because machines can do it better. We get to stop acting like robots. Let's be honest, a huge part of our workday has always been technical maintenance, like validating data in a spreadsheet, digging through search results, copy-pasting between tabs. Necessary, but not exactly human. Now we have the potential to offload all of it, to clear the desk of everything repetitive and mechanical, everything that doesn't require judgment, taste, or imagination. And once that happens, something incredible is revealed, the parts of us that are uniquely human, nonlinear thinking, acceleration, the ability to extrapolate from the present and imagine the future, taste intuition, that somehow resonates with millions of others. We're not losing our humanity, where we are rediscovering it. Profound.
Like it?
I have a lot of sympathy for it. But what about the people who are doing repetitive tasks?
They're going to have to find new careers, probably.
What percentage of the population is actually creative, actually can engage in nonlinear thinking and acceleration?
I don't know the exact percentage. And probably when you think about repetitive work, there's a cost associated with it, and it's going to be the cheaper is going to win. So if
The
it's
repetitive work.
right,
Yeah.
so if it's cheaper to do it by hand, it's still going to be manual work, and if it's not, it's going to be replaced by technology. But at the same time, I mean, I was talking about, the fact that at the same time where specific services are being displaced, others are being invented. I'll give you an example for this. So think about model training or data labeling. Data labeling has been, I think, generating in the past 2 years. There's a couple of companies that are doing this.
Scale.io, for example. Scale AI,
Yeah, I
sorry.
mean, they've generated altogether probably about $200 million in a course of 2 years. But here's the thing. Basic data labeling is no longer needed because that's done. So essentially now you need PhDs to make actually judgment calls for the very, very complex.
Corner cases. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is like a new profession that was displaced in 2 years. That's fine. It's going to be a revolving thing. The repetitive stuff is just going to be something different. And the reason why it's very hard for us to come up with these ideas is because we're not imaginative enough.
Right. Most people are not nonlinear thinkers.
Right. And so I think that the types of repetitive stuff that even machines cannot do and still require human are just going to change. They're not going to go away. So I think that the percentage who are actually doing quasi-robotic things that are like very repetitive and doesn't require high skill is just going to move to different areas of tasks.
But what would you do? All the people who've been on Fiverr for the last 15 years, just an example, it could be anyone, who have done what are today considered repetitive tasks that can be done by AI or machines. How would you help them reinvent themselves so that they can do more nonlinear, more creative tasks, more higher skill or higher pay tasks, get into those next buckets?
I'm not presumptuous enough to think that I can actually do this. Meaning, I think that one of the beauties about this ecosystem of freelancers is the fact that they've been upgrading themselves constantly, and they're actually moving much, much, much faster than full-time employees that expect the employer to actually educate them, which
Really?
we can talk about this.
I would like to talk about it. That's really interesting.
Yeah. They're moving much faster because they always need to be more efficient. So they are the scouters of new technology because they need to figure out how to automate more of what they do to work less hard and make more money. So by definition, there's a big cohort of freelancers, those who are successful. And by the way, those who are not successful, I can't help. I mean, if they don't help themselves, there's very little I can do. And the idea here is not to, is really to elevate those who are, you made the point about, freelancers being this new breed of entrepreneurs, self-made people. Those who do that gets elevated, and those who don't, like I can't take the task of educating the entire
It's
world
Darwinian.
Exactly. I mean, but this is, and so some people, I remember people complaining of, oh, it's really hard to succeed on Fiverr. And I said, where is it simple to succeed? Like, what do you want from me? Seriously. Like, is there another option to succeed fast? Take it. Go there. Seriously. Like, there is no shortcuts in life. It's just hard work and dedication and passion and
I think, unfortunately, that's an underappreciated point in many places. You do need to work hard. There are no shortcuts.
Oh, dude, like, yeah. And by the way, this was really interesting. When I send a memo to my team about what AI is doing, and then we had a follow-up meeting, and I was, so they were looking for me to give them answers, and I said, look, guys, most of you are very, very young, and so you think that your experience, your professional experience, represents the experience of what it is to be working at the workplace. I want to burst that bubble and tell you that what you've seen in the past 10 days is an aberration that didn't exist before and would not exist in the future, which is this notion that your workplace is responsible for making you better. Where on earth did you get that idea from? Who's responsible for making you a better person, a better spouse, a better parent? Why am I responsible for your professional capabilities? Fuck you. Seriously. Like, if I'll help anyone who helps themselves. But if you look for me to educate you about AI, you're doomed. You're done. You're done. And your problem is you're not done at Fiverr. You're done, period. There will be no demand for lazy people that expect the world or think that the world owes them anything.
I think if you look at corporate America right now, particularly at Howard Schultz's Starbucks, he's sending the baristas for college education. I think, many of these companies have in-house training to try to make people better. I think your view is not.
How's that going?
So I was going to say, I think your view is not popular.
I don't care.
And it's related to the previous thing you said, which is freelancers are accelerating faster than people in corporations because they are expecting the corporate employer to train them. And I think the point you're making very forcefully, and I want to double click on it, is it's not working. That's a pipe dream. And so what should we do? Just tell people, figure it out on your own?
Absolutely, yes. It starts from that. Meaning, okay, so we had this meeting, and
we as the company.
Yeah. I sent this memo. It was very blunt, and I said, okay, it might come as a shock to you, and that's fine. But I'm here. If you want to spend time with me, let's talk. And so I've asked my chief of staff to set up this the space that could hold 70 people, whatever, 50 people. But I said I'm just gonna take my laptop and I'm just gonna work there for 3 hours. If someone wants to drop by, just sit with me and let's have a chat. I went down to that room. There were 250 people cramping up, and I wasn't prepared to give a talk. So we started having this discussion, and in one of the first questions, I said, okay, so we had a long weekend. It was one of the holidays, and it connected with the weekend. And I said, how many of you, because you've seen my memo like 10 days ago, how many of you spend one night of that very, very long weekend vibe coding, trying to figure out how to do proper prompting, just using different, AI solutions? If you haven't, I can't help you. Fuck you. Seriously. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to help you. But if you're making the effort, if you want to become better, if you feel that you're responsible to making yourself worth, then in that case, we have a lot to work on. And everything that we obviously discover as individuals within the team is going to be shared. It's going to be shared with those who want and are interested in doing that. And I think that this was a very important wake-up call for people, because I've seen the transformation.
Man, what percentage of Fiverr employees kind of, okay, Micha, I got it. I'm going to get after this myself?
Well, I care less about those who actually say that, because this has no meaning. I rather measure this. Because what I said is, my expectation is that because everybody, but I mean everybody, there isn't even one function in the organization, from me down or from the bottom to me, that is not doing repetitive work. There isn't. If you're coding, you're most of your time copy pasting from GitHub and just reading like documents of integrating open source, whatever. If you're in the legal department, you're reviewing, contracts and you're doing NDAs and whatever. If you're customer support, it's obvious. If you're a graphic designer, same. So I think, in my view, everybody has the potential of automating a lot of what they're doing, and therefore they have the obligation to do it, or at least this is what I demand. And I said, ideally, I want everyone to automate 100% of what they're doing. And people looked at me and said, so why would you need me? And I said, great, because now you have 100% of your time free to do interesting stuff, things that machines cannot do yet. And I think that the people at Fiverr don't have this problem of not being able to do nonlinear thinking or bring their special taste or judgment into it, because they're at the highest curve of talent, right?
But have you been able to take people out of the cost line out of the workforce at Fiverr due to AI?
So what I said is the following. First of all, my expectation is that we're going to do multiples of our historical output per unit of time, meaning we push more. And we'll do the same on quality per unit of delivery. So we move faster and we build better things.
How do you measure the quality per unit?
So I'll give you an example. If you can push code faster, but you create more bugs, then you're just optimizing for one, okay? Same goes with anything else you produce. Like if you produce business analysis, but you didn't take the time to validate the information and you just copy paste hallucinations, then you're an idiot. But you're optimizing just for speed, but quality gets lowered.
By the way, do you enforce everyone using a coding copilot?
You don't need to enforce. Copilot was shit, should be said.
The Microsoft one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It became this brand for everything, but it's their brand.
Right, it is, yeah.
So
they trademarked it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was not good enough. And up until the appearance of Cursor, Windsurf, it just wasn't good enough. But by the way, these solutions are not great as well, and I can explain why. But
go for it.
Okay, we're getting deep
in the weeds. Yeah, that's the purpose.
We're getting deep into. By the way, why, generally speaking, AI, definitely LLMs, RAGs, are actually producing poor quality work in general. So there's two reasons for this. One is the fact that they're designed to please. Anything that is designed to please is going to generate awful results, by definition. I can explain why, but it's not. I think it's pretty intuitive. The second thing is the statistical nature of these models. What happens is that when you have a statistical model, if you look at distribution in general, distribution is like a bell curve, where there's it goes up, there's alpha, and then it goes down, there's beta. And so what happens is that when you want to focus on a statistical model, it looks for the bell curve, and this is where it has the most distribution. But here's the problem with this. Most knowledge and most information is shit. It's terrible, it's mediocre, it's average. If you look for outstanding results, outstanding ideas, they're probably right to the beta. All right. So by definition, if you look at most of the text that was written and most of the code that was written, most code is shit. Right?
The world operates on a power law, but most people revert to the mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the issue, right?
Yeah.
So this is why when you when you have the most distribution at mediocre average code, then what you're getting is you're getting poor results. But anyway, I'm not forcing people to use it, but once it became something that people feel saves them time from doing the things that they don't like anyway, which is copy pasting from open source. They started using it widely. But the way I'm judging it is I'm looking at output. So again, multiple output per unit of time, better quality per unit of delivery. It's not that complex to measure.
What have you automated in your job? What?
And anything.
Tell me, be specific.
Anything I can. Anything from daily tasks of like going through the endless amount of information that flows in the organization and from outside of it. Emails, Slack, shared documents, all of this. So spending less time on actually doing the repetitive work of just going through documents, analyzing, getting the gist of everything, creating these systems of reminders of things I need to follow up on, stuff like this. This is really easy to automate, and therefore it's in my view it's a must. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to spend more of my time thinking, because now you have more free time. I think that this allows you. But
do you really have more free time, or do you just fill it?
Well, by definition, you feel it. I mean,
do you see your kids more since AI?
No.
Are you thinking more?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
So that's what you fill it with, is thinking.
Absolutely. And by the way, I mean, theoretically, you can think less and have more free time if this is what you're optimizing for. Right. We've talked about working hard and believing in hard. Like, I love what I'm doing. I find it. I'm doing Fiverr for 16 years. If this was not interesting enough, challenging enough, mind provoking enough, I like enough. Like, there is no good reason outside of that. And so for me, spending 18 hours of my waking time, there is no separation between anything. It's just this is what I do. But it did free more time to think. And by the way, because of the transformation of AI, there was so much more to think of, and it actually challenged. Look, you can, and this is tricky for companies. What is Fiverr? What's the reason to exist for Fiverr as a company? It's very easy where when there's these new opportunities to get confused about who we are and what is our function, and say, oh, so you needed talent to carry certain tasks. Now technology can do. Let's become a technology company. Let's create, these models, agents. Let's sell them. Let's do. It's very tempting for people that usually don't follow first principle thinking to get carried away with this. And you see this inside organizations, including Fiverr. You have these talks of like, maybe we should rethink the entire thing. So in many ways, it forces you to have this very fundamental thinking of like challenging your beliefs, or at least putting them to the test, and having to reframe or rephrase how you think about things. And I think that what's going on with AI is nothing short of a cultural clash. Or
what do you mean?
Look, the one of the things that concern me the most is a human being, by the way, that has something to do with what I do at Fiverr, but mostly as a human being, as a dad, is this idea where the way AI was designed, it is designed to eat everything up. Like we're recording a podcast right now. It's going to be eaten by AI. We're working for it. Make no mistake. Which you might say it's fine. But what's interesting is the way it was designed is it swallows everything, and then it churns out new permutations of the same creation or body of content without giving any attribution to the people that were involved in creating that content. And it is breaking a mold that existed for 500 years, since 1710, or maybe it started from the Gutenberg revolution, and then 1710, the first copyright law. And the idea was, when the distribution of knowledge became more possible, there was this idea that that you wanted to attribute the things that people created to them, because this inspired them to create more and gave them also more understanding of how their work influenced others. Open source code is like that, right? It's like you do something, there's the original creator, then you fork something, but you can follow this creation path that inspires others. AI is breaking this. And what concerns me the most about it is that if this would disincentivize people from either creating or sharing, humanity is going to slow down.
Yes.
So the arc of advancement that we've seen in the past 500 years, which was the most significant out of the 300,000 years that Homo sapiens exists, the 500 last years were the steepest arc of advancement. And I'm worried that if we don't think about this, because we're optimizing for the short term, in the long term, this might slow us down as a species.
How would you incentivize creativity? There's nobody better placed. You're working with creatives all day to ask, how would you incentivize that creativity, especially extreme creativity?
It's a good question, and I'm not sure if I have an answer for that. This could be there's a few ideas. One is this idea where, and we started doing this on Fiverr, is this idea where you allow talented people to create their own models that are in their image. And when you use these models or other agents or MCPs, it doesn't matter, use these models, you can attribute the output to the actual creator. You can use NFT for that. So this might be the killer app for this.
Okay.
Meaning, if you can actually mint work for the sake of training LLMs. So you have this trail of information from the source, the actual true source of the information, all the way to the training of the model. Then you can potentially pay fractional contribution anytime this is being used. It's one way. I don't know if it's a great idea, but it's
an interesting idea. A crypto breadcrumb.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which when you think about this, it's kind of the Spotify
Yeah, on some level. Yeah.
Right?
Except there they negotiated. But yes.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. You can create a stock for that.
Sure.
Right? And also, depending on how this information is actually being used or distributed, much like anything else, like if you're a successful TikToker, then you get paid more, or a YouTuber or whatever. So if there is more interest in your content, then your songs are played more. So so essentially, but this at least creates a sense of ownership of that information.
An
So you're
incentive.
the source of it, but also a commercial. I mean, the idea of copyright, and you can love it or hate it, it doesn't matter. It solves two issues. One is the moral right, which is your right for the creation to bear your name. This is to infinity. And the other is to commercialize this. And so I think that this is, by the way, the old copyright is done. But we need to figure out, just as a way of incentivizing people to create, that's the only thing that matters. I think that this is the future of humanity. And I think it's important because this is what brought us to where we are. And I don't want my kids to be in a world where people are not incentivized to share. They're just consuming, or they're not sharing stuff because they're afraid that this would, once you create and publish something, it has zero value immediately.
I want to switch gears for the last 5 to 7 minutes of the podcast, while we challenge anybody listening to come up with ideas to incentivize people to be more creative in the era of AI. We're going to call it the Micha Kaufman challenge. And by the way, you can get paid for it handsomely on Fiverr. So you took Fiverr public. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of going public and going public early. You did that. Any lessons, anything you want to impart to entrepreneurs? You happy with the decision, unhappy with the decision, key lessons?
Don't. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I mean,
You're
look,
killing me, Micha.
Yeah. I'm obviously happy with the decision. And the reason why I'm happy is because I didn't take it private again. Because it's doable. I mean, you can, if you're extremely miserable, or you have a good reason to think that that by being a public company, it limits your ability to do X, whatever it is, and that makes sense, go private again. It's not.
What's Fiverr's market cap today?
1 point something,
Billion?
3, 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a roller coaster.
Yeah, it always is, by the way.
On its own. Yeah, it's not always that extreme. Where
Amazon,
you take,
think about Amazon.
no,
Amazon.bomb, the famous.
Wait. Well, true. True. In our case, it was, when we took the company public, it was like $600 million. It went all the way up to 11.5 billion, and then went down to a billion something, which when you think about it, the difference between when we went public and today is the company's 5 times larger. It was 20% negative EBITDA. It's now positive 20%. It's printing money. It's printing, a ton of free cash flow. It's still, we're doing a Rule of 30, which is very few companies do it, and then we're getting massacred.
I know, but oftentimes markets matter more than performance, and COVID did this, and Zerp.
And none of that actually matters to me.
Yeah, good.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So the point is, if you're short-term, don't go public. If you're not ready, if your business doesn't have steady trends, meaning it goes up and down a lot, you miss your projections a lot, don't go public. If you don't have a structure within your team where, and this was my definition, by the way, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's not, but that's my flavor. When I decided that we're going to go public, I spent the year and a half or 2 years ahead of going public in running a public company, meaning that we've done the entire ceremony of being a public company as a private company to make sure that we oil the machine, we figure out how to upgrade it, which components to replace. But one of the very important things for me was, and this was my definition for I replaced most of my senior management, not because I didn't like the people or because they weren't great. I loved each and every one of them, but they weren't the right people for a public company, and definitely not for the 5 or 10 years of a public company. And when I assembled the management team, I said, Your role is to make sure that I spend the vast majority of my time in the future and not in the present. Right?
Has being public made you a better CEO?
Oh, fuck yes. Come on. Of course.
How?
It's not just yes. There are things that have actually there's these pitfalls. These the most successful companies go through this really bad phase after going public, because it changes your daily routines and it changes the dynamics within the team, and there's all kinds of things to deal with, and all of a sudden you wake up. Usually that happens a couple of years afterwards. And I've seen this from other people I know, like Brian Chasky. He's been talking about this a lot. And there's other CEOs. Or like, you're losing your entrepreneurial, vibe and focus. And
You know
you
what's
need
interesting
to,
about that, by the way? I asked a couple of your early investors, Jonathan Colbert and Adam Fisher, what question I should ask you. And they both asked about what it's like to manage employee expectations about running a public company and how you handle kind of the ups and downs of being a public company.
so what I've done, at the big, as we were gearing up to go public, I did a town hall with the entire team, and I gave them a presentation. And in that presentation, I showed a number of stock graphs, and they were like going all over the place. And I said, can you guess which company that is? Or I saw a lot of stock like going crazy down. And I said, so which company is this one? And at the end, I started revealing these companies, these stock. But the idea was that I started also zooming out from a quarter basis to a yearly basis to a 5-year basis to a 10 or 20 years. And I said, okay, so this is Amazon, this is Microsoft, this is if you look at the very narrow lens, you're gonna see something that looks stochastic. It looks all over the place. It's terrible. But if you continue to be very focused on creating value over time and doing the right things and not confusing yourself for your true reason to exist as a business and all of this, the machine is going to sort itself out over time as you build, which is why if you have a long-term view, then this should be easier. And I think people get it. And when the stock is going crazy good or crazy bad, when it's going crazy good, you need to remind people you didn't earn this. You didn't make this. You want to see what you've done? Look at the revenue contribution that you brought. Look at the delta that you've improved on something that is not external. Like the fact that sometimes there's bad economy and there's pressure, or there's COVID and it's free growth. This is not you.
Yeah.
It's not me. We didn't earn this. But look at the performance that we're building. Look at the amount of people that we're being able to provide a living for. That's a good number.
That's a good number.
Look at their satisfaction. Look at how much of our idea is to understand that our customers are the buyers and our sellers are our community. Do we follow through on that? Do we don't lose track? Do we continue creating tremendous, value for both? If we're doing this, the stock is going to sort itself out. If you have the patience, if you don't, I don't care. Like, enjoy your ride and go to another company. It's fine as well.
3 short questions to finish.
All right.
Just over the last week or two, this guy Maor Shlomo from Base 44 sold his company to Wix. Nir Zohar, who is the president of Wix, is also a board member at Fiverr.
Correct.
Is this a new way to build a company, or is this an aberration? I think it was $80 million you sold it for to Wix?
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, when you think about the deal itself, it's everything is multiples. And the way to measure if these multiples actually make sense is their long-term contribution. So if you ask me, I think that this was a brilliant deal, and it was because it's at the very, very, very core of what Wix is as a company. And if this is, and it is, a shortcut to getting into vibe coding, awesome. And Wix is an incredibly profitable company. It's generating a ton of free cash flow, and for them, it's not a big deal. And I think the upside is amazing and always amazing. And like,
it's an aberration, but a
No,
good aberration,
no,
that it makes sense for them.
Here's the thing, and this is really important for people to understand. AI is creating an illusion for most people because it makes us better. It makes us more productive. And you think that you're gaining this superpowers as a human being, and it makes you more confident and you can do more stuff. Yes, but it's giving the same power to everyone else, which means that it doesn't give any power to anyone, which means that it's the entire thing is it's just bringing all of us,
Raising the floor.
exactly, which the illusion that this would make you better is exactly that. It's an illusion. So essentially, when you think about what's happening right now, because we're in this intermediate period with AI, it's very hard to extrapolate anything from now.
I agree.
Because we're kind of it's happening too fast. We don't know what to think about it. I think about, incentivizing people to create. Most people don't give a shit. Like, whatever, it does things for me for free. I love it. Whatever. So, but the thing is that in these periods of time where these transformations happen, one of the only advantages that businesses have is speed. Vibe coding, great. Base 44, amazing. Lovable, amazing. Bolt, amazing. Figma, amazing. Microsoft hasn't entered yet. Wait for it. So each one has their 5 minutes of glory before there's going to be another cool thing. But these 5 minutes matter. So I actually think, so if you think about Wix and Base 44, timing, yes, go for it. Because buying those 5 minutes is important. And for a company like Wix, that this is rooted in their very core reason to exist, it's a must, because they have, the faster you can play, the more secure your business position is going to be.
What's it been like leading a global company when your country's at war?
I think running the company is not changing. It's not influencing strategy. It's not, it's not infiltrating any of our planning. And by the way, most of the execution. What it does do is make you much more obsessed with your team well-being. We had, I don't know, Fiverr has more than 1,000 employees. 6-7 of them are lost their homes. And every day you hear of someone else. And so this is, I think that this is where that's the biggest, you care about the team all year long, but this is like, and there is another, which I've actually learned from COVID, there's another aspect of it, which is a responsibility of a CEO that happens to be also older than most of his team, to be the responsible adult and be a voice of like, we're in this together. The skies are not falling down. We're going to go through it. Probably we'll come out the other way better, because we're using this opportunity to get closer to figure out things. COVID was a really interesting test case for that. Um, and what I've done during COVID is I remember this was, I think, March 20, whatever, where they locked down the entire world. And this was the beginning of the week or midweek. Friday, I just sat down and I wrote an email to the entire company to explain what COVID is, because a lot of people didn't
Yeah.
know what it was. But I also related to the business and what was going on. We dropped 17% in a minute in our business, and this lasted for like 10 days, and then we exploded. But for 10 days, it looked like it
It was
looked like
over.
really bad. And I found myself the next Friday writing another email and another one. And I wrote more than 50 of these. So for a year,
Oh, wow.
and this became the weekend newspaper for people, because it started by, talking about COVID and the business and the impact and all of it. But then as you write every week, it was my anniversary. So I wrote about marriage. It was my kid's birthday. So I wrote about raising kids. And I continued to write about obsessing about your competitors versus staying very true to who you are and paving your own way, and it was stuff like that.
I think there's a book here.
There is a book. I turned 50 and the team turned it into a book.
Oh, yeah?
And this book is being given to any new team member that joined the company, because it's kind of the story of the culture of Fiverr in many ways, because it's like, anyway, it was a very nice
Last
gesture.
question for you. This year you led the high-tech mission to Auschwitz.
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? Why now?
It was the 80th year of freeing up Nazi Germany. The survivors are getting really old. So you're getting into their probably last years of being able to actually participate. Maybe also, I mean, my age of my kids, made me realize that there is a responsibility here of taking the torch. But I wanted to experience this with them, with the survivors. And there was this moment where we wanted to make a point where it's the 80th year. We wanted to get 80 survivors, which is very unusual. And we spoke with the organizers that have been doing this for 30 years. And they said, we want 40 out of Israel. And it's like you need a person to accompany everyone, and then you need a doctor for every 5 and whatever. And they said, I'll take it. We'll do it, because it's like we have to do it. And I'll speak with my friends from other companies, and if this makes sense, we'll try to lead this march this time. And so this was kind of the idea, and we've been doing. I've been doing a lot of work with Holocaust survivors through a philanthropic fund that I started 7 years ago. So this was dear to me. No relation in my family to Nazi Germany, and we decided to take also people from survivors from October 7th with us, and just do this march. This was a life-changing event for me. Like I remember I went there with my wife. We came back, and we couldn't wind down. It was like for 5 days afterwards, I couldn't talk or do anything that was not around the story of what we've experienced there. And I told them, because we had this terrible rain, a rain that never happened in 37 years of the march. And we got like everybody. We were like, we had the water in our shoes. And I said, we're doing it again next year. And we've done 80 high-tech people. We're going to do 800 next year. And this is to me, it's this idea of just taking the torch and continuing this, because this is the story of why this country became what it is, and we need to preserve it. We need to preserve that story and continue telling it, and making sure that the next generations are going to be a part of that story and this understanding, because for them the country is obvious. They were born into it, and it's a flourishing country. Um, they need to understand the roots, and I think it's our responsibility now, and it's going to be their responsibility in 20 years from now. But I think it's really important. It's so fundamental in our story as a nation.
Micha, thank you. This was absolutely fascinating conversation,
Thanks for having me.
an important one on many levels. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.